welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a recommendation video. This is the first time I've done a recommendation video in a very long time. So I figured I would start with beginner fantasy. What books should you read if you're trying to jump into the fantasy genre? Now, I do have some parameters I set for myself in choosing these books, and I will tell you what they are. One, I want plot heavy fantasy because I always think that if people are going to get into fantasy, sometimes we as fantasy readers will pick very intricate books thinking, oh, this will win everybody over, and probably not. Probably not. They will probably get confused and they will probably be like, okay, this is why I didn't read fantasy in the first place. So I picked plot heavy books. I picked ones that were fast reads. I picked ones that the writing was fairly simplistic and it didn't take a whole lot of brain power for me to get through these books. And so that's why I am recommending them to you as beginner fantasy. So with all of that being said, I have to stick to my guns on this one with everything I just said and recommend Mistborn. Okay, there's going to be people who say, oh, this is too intricate for what you just said. This is not plot heavy. Yes, it is. And it's very simplistic writing, probably some of the most straightforward simplistic writing you will find in fantasy, and that is why I am recommending it. Also, there is a lot of hand-holding with this book. There's a whole lot of hand-holding with the magic system. Things are repeated ad nauseum in Mistborn so that you understand what's going on. And I do happen to love this series by Brandon Sanderson, and I think that when people say this is where you should start with Sanderson or this is a great way to start with fantasy, we're not ignoring the entirety of the Cosmere to say just read this. We are saying that if you want a way to dip your toe into epic fantasy, a way to dip your toe into these massive worlds, this is a good place to start because you're not going to be overwhelmed by the world building or the writing. And while they are plot heavy, they also have plot and character in equal measure, which is kind of a sweet spot for me personally. And I love this trilogy. It does get more intricate and a little bit more political as the series progresses. So it might not be a favorite jumping off point for everyone, but I definitely recommend starting here. On that same note, we have Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan. Everything I just said about Mistborn could be applied to this series as well. Now, I have only read the first two books in this series, but it is because I've read Sanderson and I've read Sullivan, and their writing is very similar, and it's not my favorite. So I do think that this is a great setup to an epic world. I can see the threads of what Michael J. Sullivan is doing here. And then we have Rhaeria, which is tied to the series. So you have kind of a Cosmere-esque world with Michael J. Sullivan as well, and more that you can build on as you become a more advanced reader, just like Stormlight with Brandon Sanderson and all of that. So two very epic fantasies to put on your radar if you are a beginner, but they are not what the rest of this video is going to be. Everybody recommends Mistborn. Everybody recommends Michael J. Sullivan. So I'm going to step outside of the typical recommendations and give you guys recommendations on what I like to read, the plot heavy stuff, the epic world building, but not so epic that you are overwhelmed. And let's kick it off with The Stardust Thief, and the entire reason this video exists because I'm so excited to pick up The Ashfire King. It came in the other day and I have just been so excited to continue this series. It has been kind of on hold, on standby, if you will. And I started thinking about this book and I'm like, this is a great starter fantasy. This is about a girl who's a thief who ends up saving the life of a prince, but then she gets embroiled with the king or sultan. I'm not sure. Sultan, because this is desert fantasy. Anyway, she gets embroiled with him. He sends her on a mission to uncover a relic, and the story goes from there. But this is great because it is very plot heavy. While we do have great characters in this, the world building is fairly simplistic. It's things that we've seen before. If you've watched Aladdin, this is the type of world you'll be in and it'll feel comfortable. And I absolutely loved this story. Next would be Queen of Blood by Sarah Beth Durst. Again, we have a great story with great characters, fairly simplistic world building, and a great plot. A great plot. I loved all 3 books of this series. The third one is the weakest in my opinion, the second one the strongest. But if you are looking to dip your toe into fantasy, this has some pretty cool concepts that I think that you'll enjoy while discovering what you like. And I like the writing. Sarah Beth Durst is very easy to read, but still very immersive in her worlds. It's very easy to settle into this. It's very easy to like the characters and dislike some of the characters. And I just think that if you are looking for something that is kind of short, but also very good, you will really enjoy this one. My next recommendation is going to be for you mystery lovers out there. If you know anything about me, you probably know what I'm going to say, but The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is a mystery of the day on the backdrop of an epic fantasy world. So while you are learning about this epic fantasy world, we are solving a mystery that we have. And if you were playing Our Fantasy Bingo, Biopunk, here you go. I will add to your Biopunk, your Our Fantasy Bingo recommendations. I love this series. I gave this 5 stars. I gave the second book 4.5 stars. But this is very much Sherlock Holmes and Watson in a fantasy world. So if you like mysteries and you like solving mysteries, and biopunk is something that sounds good to you, or if you don't know what biopunk is, it's basically the wildlife has taken over. The wildlife is a very intricate part of the plot, and you'll find that out as you go along. But this starts out with a man who is killed and a tree sprouts from his chest. So they're trying to figure out how this happened, all that stuff. But we also have these leviathans that attack the city, and that's where the fantasy plot starts to come into play. We learn about the leviathans, we learn about their place in this world, we learn about the magic, and I just think this is so fantastically done and very easy to read. Next, we have The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons. Now, fun fantasy plot, it doesn't get better than this. If you're looking for a good time, if you are looking for dragons, if you are looking for magic and betrayals and all the things that we as fantasy lovers talk about in books, I have said that this reads like an homage to fantasy. This reads like a person who just wanted to share their love of the fantasy genre as a whole in this book. Then yes, I have heard this compared to Fourth Wing, and I think that does this a disservice because this is a little darker. It's not so romance heavy. There is a subplot of romance in here, but the dragons are really cool. The world is really cool. The story is really cool. And I think if you're starting out in fantasy, you're wanting to dip your toes into fantasy, this is an excellent starting point. Next, I have to say The Tethered Mage by Melissa Caruso. Now, simplistic writing is not typically something I like, but Melissa Caruso somehow uses simplistic writing to build these epic worlds, and I really, really loved it. On the same vein as like Mistborn, there's really cool magic here, and you get to parse it out as you go. You get to find out things as you go. As far as like anything I can compare to Mistborn, this would be it. It has quite a heavy political thread running through the entire series. We talk about magic and how magic can corrupt, and like there are so many things that I can compare to Mistborn and this. And like I don't think that this is quite as epic as Mistborn, but it does have a lot of the same elements that you keep hearing people talk about, and they're not as long, which is also a bonus if you're just trying to dip your toe in. And this also has a spin-off series based in this world, but this has more of a witchy feel to it than a mage feel. So if you like that, I would recommend starting here. And then I have 2 indie self-pub that I would like to talk about. And if you've ever really liked Westerns, if you've ever really liked the whole like train robbery gone wrong type story, if you really liked Mistborn Era 2. I do think I have a comp for Mistborn Era 2 here as well. That would be No Land for Heroes by Cal Black. I love Millie. Millie is a fantastic character to follow. She is dark and her story is dark, but these are a breath of fresh air in a dark world. Let me just say, I love Cal Black's writing. This is currently an unfinished series, but I can tell you that book 2 is just as good. I've been taking my time with it because I know that book 3 is not coming yet, but I love this story. It is very much a Western fantasy, a gas lamp fantasy, and it does have very much of a Western feel to it. But you will read this for the dragons, for the train robberies, and stay for the characters because they are so fantastic. I love this. And again, not very long, so a good starting place if you like Westerns and want to dip your toe into fantasy. And I couldn't make a video like this without bringing up Voice of War by Zach Argyle. Now, everything that we as fantasy lovers love about the genre is condensed into this trilogy. Threadlight is one of my favorite stories. We have a married couple, they have a baby. I can't find that hardly anywhere else, and I have been seeking it out. And this has a very dark opening, but once you get into the story, you realize that this is a story of hope, and I love that about this. I also love that there is world building, there is character work, there is plot, just sprinkled through every page of this story. Zach has been able to take everything we love about fantasy and, like I said, condense it down into something that is truly amazing. And this is one of my favorite series of all time. So I highly recommend starting here if that is where you choose to start, because these are absolutely fantastic. The relationships in here, the magic in here is really cool. It is reminiscent of Mistborn, which came before, but I do think that Zach changes it enough that it is his own thing. But yes, absolutely love this series, and the more people that I can get to read this series, the better. And for my final one, I'm gonna have to turn you guys here just a bit to my R.J. Barker stack there and Age of Assassins. Why am I recommending Age of Assassins? Well, that is because if you are into dark assassin type stuff, if you are into more intricately plotted books that will take twists and turns and make you think, I actually think Age of Assassins is a very great place to start for fantasy for you, because this one has kind of an assassin versus assassin type plotline. It has the mentor-mentee relationship that a lot of fantasy has, and the writing itself, while it is more elevated than a lot of the books that I have currently recommended for you, I do think it's still highly readable. And I do think the world building and everything like that is a little bit more condensed in the Age of Assassins than it is in, say, Lords of the Weirdwood or The Bone Ships. R.J. Barker has elevated his own writing as he continues to write, but Age of Assassins is a great starting place if that sounds like something you'd be into. If you love assassins, if you love twisty turny plots, definitely recommend that. But that's it for me today. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!